Well, thank you for those kind words. And yeah, we didn't meet until this morning. I traded a couple emails and a few texts, but that's about it. So I wasn't sure what to expect today, but this has been great and enjoy. It was good catching up with Brother Doug. I'm glad you took your water bottle here. I didn't want to drink. No, I'm glad you took yours. I said I didn't want to get confused. Is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, exactly. You said you can catch it from your mother's milk. I'm not sure about Aquafina. I don't know what that does, but no, it's good catching up, Brother Doug. We've laughed and we've shared. It's been a while. We saw each other in open house last summer, but I think that was the first time for a few years. But it's fun to just pick right up where we left off. But I enjoy his sense of humor, and I don't take myself very serious most of the times. But this is kind of different for me this afternoon now, to be serious for a moment. But so I will try that. And see how it goes. But yeah, this is good catching up. We talked about I've got 4 boys. He's got 4 boys? 5 boys. 5 boys. Yeah, I got a girl. I got a daughter in there too. So we'll have 5 kids. But anyway, so we talked about our boys just being ruthless to each other, right? With text messages and him being brothers and my brothers. I've got, like I said, I got 3 brothers, and we're just ruthless to each other. So we just pick up on things that say, and he left a lot of nuggets, but I'm going to be good. He left a lot of nuggets I could pick up on, but he was good to me, so I'm going to have to be nice to him. But just a little bit by myself. My wife couldn't be here today, and my family couldn't be here, but I live in Flushing, west of Flint. No, we don't have Flint water. I get asked that all the time. I used to do a lot of traveling for work, and people always ask me, "Oh, you have Flint water?" No, I don't have Flint water, thankfully. But so we're outside that zone. But yeah, so we live in Flushing. I've lived ever since 2017. But as I mentioned, I have 5 kids, 2 boys, a girl, and then 2 boys. So it's like we repeated ourselves. The 2 boys are identical on both their personalities. It's just like, what are we doing? This is the exact same thing we're living over again. But yeah, so we've got 5. I've also got a daughter-in-law. My oldest son is 24. Was married in 2020. Got married twice actually that year. We always joke about that because he got married on April 4th, and we thought things would get better by August. So they had 2 wedding ceremonies, and of course neither one was we had to adjust both of them to the last minute. So yeah, so we also have a grandson now. He was 7 months old last week, so they gave us a grandson. And like they say, grandkids are way better than kids. And Amy and I were talking about this morning. We could have skipped the kid phase and just go right to grandkids. Have been great. But anyway, we enjoy that. And I'll be happy to show you pictures later because I'm proud of that. But yeah, I do. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a minister. Brother Doug preached this morning. I'm glad for that. He busted out Beloved twice. So you know he's preaching when you bust out Beloved. But I'm not going to preach this morning. I'm just going to kind of tell my story. But I do work for Delta Dental as my employer. I am a business continuity guy. So if you watch Friends at all, I'm like the Chandler. No one knows what I do exactly. I can't explain it, but that's my job. So I coordinate plans. So when I started in 2019, just before COVID, they were kind of on the tail end of putting things together. Business continuity plans for continuation of business if something were to happen, being a pandemic. Furthest from anybody's mind at that point, but we got those done in December of that year, and then we rolled them out in March. So the timing was pretty good there. But so that's my job. That's what I do. So this morning I'm here to talk about my father. So on July 16th, 2008, he committed suicide. He took his life. I want to talk a little bit about that story, but before I do that, I kind of want to give you just a little bio on him, where he came from. His history. As Brother Doug mentioned, he served under him for a while as we moved here from Texas. But he was born in 1951, so at the time he was 57 years old when he committed suicide. He preached his first message. He surrendered to preach at age 16. Preached his first message. His first message in 1969, the same night that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. So he often would joke there's one step forward for Neil Armstrong, but one step back for the Christian faith. So that was his claim to fame there. But he attended Jacksonville Baptist Bible College in Jacksonville, Texas, where he met my mother. Then he went on to Dallas Baptist and got his degree there as well, his doctorate, I should say. So we moved. I was born in 75. So when I was 2 months old, I don't remember it very well, but we moved to Arkansas at that time. He took a church there in Arkansas, and we were there for about 10 years. But he was involved in different political areas at that time. He was in the moral majority with, if you remember, Dr. Jerry Falwell started the moral majority. My dad was the president of the Arkansas chapter of that. So did some things there. Worked. He also talked to, Frank White was a governor, Frank White, who Bill Clinton served one term as governor. Frank White beat him, and then Bill Clinton went on to win again. But Frank White later said that my dad was influential in that. The moral majority was influential in that getting the evangelicals out to vote and got him out of office. So Frank White gave my dad credit for that. But he was also instrumental in getting creationism taught in public schools. A bill passed Frank White's desk allowing creationism to be taught in public schools. So he was instrumental in that. But then in about 86, 85, I don't remember, maybe it was 87 even, somewhere in that time frame, we moved to Texas, where I did most of my growing up, I think. I was 10 years old when we moved there, 10 or 11. So we were there for a number of years, and then moved up to Michigan, to Cornerstone Baptist Church in 1992, where I've been ever since. So again, just kind of now the awkward transition here to the story of my dad on that day. So I've never told this story. This is the first time I've actually told this story. I've lived it for a number of years, right? But I've never actually told the story. But I'll just kind of go over a little bit what that happened that day. So at that time, I was working for a company, EDS, which is no longer around. But I was working for EDS, and I was in an office building in downtown Flint, or near just south of downtown Flint. I was in a meeting. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little after 9. I got a phone call from my mom, which I thought was odd. My cell phone was going off, and she was calling me. And so I didn't answer it, which, is not uncommon, I guess. Sometimes I'll let people call me, and I'm busy, and so I let it go to voicemail. But I remember thinking, I was on the call, I was hosting this call, so it wasn't a good time to take the call. But I remember thinking, that's just odd that she would call me. So then a little time, and then I saw the voicemail indicator pop up, and I was like, something's up. So I put the phone in the other ear, I had the speaker phone on the other one, and I listened to her message, and she said something to the effect of Matthew, which she never calls me Matthew, unless I'm in trouble, but she said, Matthew, they found your dad unresponsive, and they've taken him to the hospital. We're on our way there now, and you need to get there. And that's all she said. So I called her back, and she didn't answer. I think she was talking to one of my other brothers at that point. So I immediately jumped in the car. I ended the call. I said, guys, I got to go. And I hung up on the conference call. And I told them, I'd shared an office with two other guys. And I told them, hey, I got to go. Something's up with my dad. I'm not sure what's going on. So I jumped in the car and took off as fast as that little minivan would go, driving down the expressway to Genesis Hospital. It was about a 10-minute drive. I think I probably made it in 8. But I was going as fast as I could. And I get there, and I realized I don't even know where I'm supposed to go. I don't know. So I assumed the ER at that point. So I parked in the ER, and I walked into the hospital, and there was a line of people there waiting to talk to the person, the people at the desk. And so I kind of excused my way around them, and kind of a little bit rude, I guess. And I asked the lady, I said, hey, I was got a phone call. My dad's been brought in. I don't know what's going on. Can you help me? And the two ladies that were behind the desk kind of looked at each other, and I thought was kind of odd. They kind of looked at each other, and you could see the nonverbal argument they were having of who was going to take care of me. But one of them finally did stand up, and she said, well, come with me. So she motioned me to another door, walked through the door, and she led me back down this long hallway that seemed like endless, So I was walking down this hallway, and we get to the final door, and then this hallway before it branched off to another direction. But she led me, and it said something about family counseling or something, family consultation room maybe. So I asked her down the hallway, saying, what's going on? Can you give me some information? And she kind of just walked a little bit faster and kind of ignored me. So we get to the door, and she kind of motioned to the door, didn't open it. So I just kind of, okay, I guess this is the end of our journey. So I knocked on the door, tapped on the door a little bit, and then I just kind of opened the door and peeked my head in, and there on the floor I see my brother, my youngest brother, and I see our associate pastor and his wife, and then my mom just on the floor around a box of tissues, and our associate pastor had his Bible open, was reading his Bible, and I was like, this is not good. Sorry, I'm trying to get through this. So then I went in the door, and my mom stood up, and she come over to me, and she put her arms around me, and she said the words that I knew were coming. She said, "Matthew, your dad's gone. He's no longer here." Well, I wasn't surprised to hear that. But at this point, I'm assuming a heart attack or something, because he'd had some heart issues in the past. But so I just lost at that moment, started crying, and she started crying. She already was crying, but so we're just trying to gather ourselves for a few seconds, and maybe even a minute, I don't know. But then she said something I never will forget, and she said, they're saying he took his life. They're saying he killed himself. And at that moment, I went complete shock. I was like, no, this can't be right. This is not right. So I didn't know any details. I was trying to get some more details out of her. At that moment, I wasn't. It moved more from emotional crying to just shock and disbelief. This can't be right. They've got it wrong. They've got the wrong person. I said, have you seen him? She said, no, I haven't seen him. I said, they've got the wrong person. I said, this can't be. And then I started thinking, well, someone did this to him. Someone, not knowing all the details, I said, someone took his life. So I went through that, and then I don't remember exactly what happened after that. Just kind of sat down, and we began to pray and read Scripture again. And our associate pastor was reading Scripture, and I don't remember what he was saying. I was lost at that moment. I was somewhere else, a million miles away, trying to gather my thoughts and figure out what was going on. And I deal with facts, right? I deal in facts, and I needed answers, and we didn't have any at that point. So a little time passed, and then I watched my two other brothers who weren't there come in one at a time separately, and I watched my mom go through that same process she went through with me, hugging my brothers and telling them the same way she told me, and seeing their reactions were different from each other. One was like mine, the other was just didn't say a word. So they were there for a while, and then others began to come in. Their wives came in. My brother's two wives came in separately again, and I watched them get up and tell their wives. And my wife wasn't there yet, but she was on her way. She's always fashionably late, so she was no different this day. So she comes in, and I see my father-in-law behind her. He drove her there, but he kind of read the room and didn't come in. But she came in, and I had to go over and explain what was going on to her, because I didn't tell her over the phone. We didn't tell anybody over the phone what had happened, or what we suspected had happened at this point. But so then some more time passed. Other people began to come in. Other pastors came in from all over the area. Pastors were showing up, and about this point, we had outgrown this room. It was probably 20 by 20. We didn't have any more room for people that were coming in. And so at this, we were also asking, we need answers. We need someone to come to give us some information. Where's the detective? Where's the police officer? Can somebody give us some information? And then so finally, they moved us to another room. It looked like more of a boardroom type thing. There was a big table in the middle of the room. And we sat around the table, and then a little while later, I don't know how much time had passed, but the detective came in. And still at this point, I'm thinking, this is not right. This can't be my dad. This didn't happen. He didn't take his life. Someone took it from him. And so the detective came in and started giving us some answers of what had happened, that a truck driver, the hospital that we were at, Genesis Hospital, it's on 75, just south of, near Grand Blanc. But my dad had left a message, and we found all this information out in that meantime. My dad was on his way to Genesis Hospital to go visit someone, which was his normal routine, to go visit someone in the hospital in the mornings. So he left a message on the answering machine of the church for the secretary, and said, I'm going to Genesis, I'm visiting this person, then I'm going to Hurley and visiting this person, then I'll be back in the office, 10 o'clock or whatever. So he left that message at 8 o'clock. But then something between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock led him to the exit beyond Genesis Hospital. We don't know the details why, but he found a gravel pit. And so anyway, this truck driver was was one that found him, and said that he pulled into this gravel pit, and the truck driver was on his way. He was doing his work, and he saw that the car sitting there, and the door open, and the car running, and my father laying behind the car in full suit and tie, just laying. And so he knew something obviously was up. So he got out of his truck, and he walked over and saw the condition my father was in, and not knowing the circumstances, went back to his truck, called 911, and the police that's when they were notified. So we get all this details from the police officer, the detective. He was telling us all this information. Still at this point, I'm thinking, yeah, my dad gave someone a ride, which wasn't uncommon for my dad to give someone a ride who needed a ride. And someone hijacked him and robbed him and killed him. So I started asking questions. These questions started coming. I said, did he have his wallet on him? Did he have any? And the detective said, yes, he had his wallet. I said, was there money in his wallet? And he said, yeah, there was a couple $100, which also wasn't unusual because my dad always had cash to give to somebody. So he was telling us all that, and then I'm still trying to gather all the facts, and at this point I'm still thinking this was still a robbery. This was a robbery gone bad. And I said, was there a note? It finally came to me. I gathered my thoughts. I said, was there a note? And he said, and he opened his binder at that point, and he brings me the letter, or a copy of the letter, and I remember at just that time, I was like, okay, somebody could have afforded this or made him write this. But then I got the letter, and I took it in my hands, and I saw the first line. It said, "My dearest Neva," and I knew right then that it was him, that he had done this. And he went on in the letter just to write, he called us all out and just said something special about each one of us, mentioning us, and bringing that up. And I knew I just lost it. But I continued to read the letter just to myself. And other conversation was going on in the room. He may have given us more detail. I don't know, but I was lost in that moment, just reading the words. My dad left, but at the moment it became real that my dad had committed suicide. He had left us. He left us. He's never coming back. So I saw that. I took all that in. The next couple of days, of course, as most funerals go, we've all lost loved ones in those days. Are kind of a blur, getting prepared for the funeral. There was an autopsy, of course. They did an autopsy, and so that was on a Wednesday morning. So the visitation wasn't until Saturday and Sunday, and the funeral on Monday, the 21st. But I remember just that time just being a blur, just kind of going through what needed to be done to get ready for the funeral. And it wasn't until after the funeral was over. That's the case for most of us, right? They've lost loved ones. It's that time after the funeral's over, after your loved ones have gone, after your grandparents have gone back home. All your other family members gone. Now you're by yourself to think and to sort through all the details. And in this moment, we're just left with the impact of it all, right? Just trying to gather the pieces and pick up. Just left with so many unanswered questions. It's like we all dealt with it differently. Depression. Mine was guilt. I felt guilt. I felt that I should have seen these signs. My dad was my best friend. He was someone I called all the time. I would also often get in trouble with my wife because I'd tell him things before I told her. And, that just didn't go well with her. But I didn't have that anymore. And I started thinking, why didn't I see this from my friend? Why didn't I see this from my dad? Why didn't I see him struggling? And I began just to feel that guilt. And then you start thinking, well, did he love me? He obviously couldn't confide that he was struggling. Did he not love me enough to tell me these things? Did I not love him enough to listen? Was he trying to tell me these things? Just all those things that you feel, those emotions that are going through. Just feel depression. You just feel anger. You feel just all these different emotions coming on, just different day, even at the same time. You just feel betrayed. You feel guilty. Feel detached. I went into just a detached mode. I just didn't care anymore. I just wanted to be left alone. I didn't want to talk about anything. I just wanted to deal with it how I wanted to deal with it. Another thing was seeing with as I mentioned, he was a pastor. So my guilt was not only for losing my father, not seeing the signs, but my guilt was also for what the church was going through. Just seeing that loss of a leader, right? That vacuum of leadership is gone. Or there was a vacuum of leadership, I should say. And just trying to deal with that. I began to do more things because I just felt bad for the people who were also suffering. The church was suffering, and I felt bad for them. And I wanted to do more. I felt that I had a calling to go into the ministry at one time in my life, and I was even a youth pastor for a short time, interim youth pastor, and I realized that wasn't what the Lord had for me in that time. But then I started questioning that. I was like, why wasn't I could have been a pastor. I could have been on staff right now. I could have been doing more things to help the church. So I've carried that guilt for a number of years, and I kept doing things. I started getting more involved, and I was already doing things, but I was, the Wana commander. I was in the choir. I sang in a quartet. I sang in an ensemble, a couple ensembles, and other groups. Just all these things that I was doing, but I began to do more. I've been Sunday school teaching and just all these different things, trying to fill the gaps where I could. I even did some preaching. I preached on Sunday nights and Wednesday nights as a pulpit supply because we didn't have the staff any longer. We were already short-staffed. Then my dad left, and then we're in the worst condition. And then seeing the financial burden that it left, right? Because here's my mom, 56 years old, I think at the time. Now she's got a $125,000 mortgage on her house, no income. How's she going to pay for this house? She was a secretary part-time at the church. She helped out when she needed to, or when they needed her to. So that was it. That was the only income she had. Another setback was a life insurance policy my dad had. It was a term life, $500,000 policy. I said, okay, this will get her through. Then come to find out they denied the claim because he was 2 weeks short of being a year into the policy. And because of that, there was a clause in there saying the suicide was voided the policy. So that policy wasn't there. She had another $20,000 one that they paid on, but it obviously wasn't enough to get my mom through. So we had all those burdens thinking about how we're gonna get her through. Obviously not old enough to collect Social Security at this point, but all these things just kept piling on, and I just went through depression. As I mentioned, just guilt. I felt the guilt of my dad, the guilt of the void that he left for the other people. There was one point, and my wife brought this up. I didn't remember this, but when it became real, one morning we're getting ready for church, and we were waiting. I was waiting on the bathroom. My wife was in the bathroom. I was finished getting ready, and I was sitting on the bed, and my wife comes out, and she knew something was wrong. She said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I just don't know who I am anymore. I don't know." I mean, I had put so much of everything that I was doing. I realized at that moment was wrong. Everything I was doing was. Are there any preachers' kids in here? Right? I was a preacher kid mode, right? I'm doing things because they had to be done. I'm not doing things for there was some love of God, but most of the things, my motives were wrong. I was doing things to fill a vacancy, not to honor and please God. So I was spread way too thin. I was doing things just going through the motions, but wasn't effective in any of them, right? Because I was spread too thin. I just was doing too much at that time. So we also mentioned, I kind of detached. I had lost some income at that time. The company I was working for, we got acquired by another company, and instead of, they cut as many heads as they could, and they got to the point where we were so short-staffed they couldn't cut anymore, and so then they started cutting salary. So they cut 5% and then 10% of the salary, and already living paycheck to paycheck, right? So now I'm getting behind on my mortgage, and at this point I didn't even care. It got to the point where this was in 2012 or 13 after the market crash. All the houses were worthless at that point, and my house I owed more on my house than was worth. So that the bank was going to help me out, was going to work with it, and then they decided, well, your house is worthless. It's worth you owe more than it's worth. So they basically said we can't do anything for you. So I said, well, take it then. It's yours. But we could have saved it. And, I could have done things, but at that point I just didn't care. I'm just ready to be done. I just need to get out. And so through that, we were homeless. Now we're looking for what to do. I moved in with my mom for a while, and then, but then the Lord, right? So that's when things started to change around. And I'm thankful for those times in the Bible where you see difficulties, but then you see, but God, right? But God butts in, and I'm thankful for all those times when God shows up. But he got us through those things, and then we just needed some time. As I said, I was spread too thin. I had to get away. I was on 2 pulpit committees also in there. We had a pastor come for a short time, saw the hurt in the church, and it said it was basically too much, and he took off, went back to his old church. So we went through another pastor, Pastor Chris Yeager. I don't know if some of you guys know. Well, you guys know Chris Yeager, but he came, and he was able to start healing the church. Through his leadership, and the church began to heal, and I said, we got to get away. This is I've got to go. I can't be here anymore. This is toxic. My family's starting to resent me that I'm never home. I'm never spending time with them, and my relationship with my wife was suffering. My kids weren't doing good in school. My two oldest kids weren't doing well because of this. I know it was, and we decided to homeschool at that point. Took them out of school, and then they started to do better. That was the burden that put in my wife's heart. But anyway, after we lost our house, the Lord. We were looking just for a house anywhere, not in Flint, not in the Flint area. We needed to get away. I needed to be out. I needed to be gone. So I don't know. My wife found it somehow. The Lord gave it to her. But there was a house up north, Reed City. I don't know if you know where Reed City is, near Cadillac, between Cadillac and Big Rapids. But there was a missionary family that was going to be on the missions field for a couple of years. At that point, they were saying a couple of years, and they were going to build a hospital in Africa. They were engineers, and they were going to help build this hospital. So the Lord worked it out that they were just needed somebody for short term to live in their house, take care of their house, and be stewards of their house while they were overseas. It was like $1,100 a month for this beautiful, brand new 5,000 square foot house on 30 acres of land. I'm like, okay, let's go. So we went, and it was all the Lord. So we were able to get away from the area and just heal as a family. And did good up to this point, but just be able to be one with each other and reconnect and regrow and just go to church and I don't encourage this, but go to church and not have any ministries, right? Just show up and sit in the pew, which I never had done, never ever in my life, and that was only a short time, so I'm back to ministry now. But we needed that. We needed that just to get away, just that disconnect and to be fed instead of trying to feed. We couldn't even take care of ourselves, let alone feed someone else. So just needed that time of being a family and growing close together. And my kids started doing well. I just had that relationship again and bonding and just that time with each other. But just as I mentioned, but God, right? So but God, but just time, a little application here. I guess if you I don't know anybody's heart here. I know just 4 people here this morning. So I don't know your struggles, and I don't know if suicide has affected you or one of your loved ones, or know someone, or maybe it will. I don't know, but I just like to just think of these things as maybe you're here and you're a victim of suicide, right? But I just want you to think it's not your fault. It's nothing. And I struggled with that for a long time. It's nothing you can do. There's nothing you could have done. You didn't make this decision for them. They ultimately made that decision. Whether we could go into reasons why. We could go into medications or whatever that were on that affect your decision making. But at the end, it's that person made that decision. My dad made that decision. He left. So it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. You couldn't have stopped it. I had to come to terms with that. I couldn't have stopped it. There's nothing I could have done. This was something that he chose. Whether in full mind or not, but this is something that he chose. We're not gonna have answers on this side of heaven, right? We're not gonna know the answers. There's so many things in that letter that he left that didn't make sense. I mean, he said like to my mom, he said, I can't put you through this again. We don't know what this is. We don't know what that meant. All we can think of is that her mom suffered from Alzheimer's, and she died at 50. Or maybe even late 40s. She died of all. So watching her go through that, I don't know if he thought he was losing his mind. He mentioned not being able to handle the details anymore. But we don't know. We don't know what his struggles really were, what he was facing. You have that thought of, was he running from something? And me being me, I've got to get the facts. So I'm going through everything. I'm going through his phone records. I'm going through his voicemails, his deleted voicemails, everything I could find. Nothing. I can't find any reason why. But we're not going to have those answers. I had to just resolve to that we're not going to have the answers inside of heaven. And then when we get to heaven, we're probably not even going to care, right? We're not going to care anymore. But we're not going to have those answers. We don't need them, maybe. But and also maybe here you're struggling with something. Maybe you're struggling with depression. Maybe you're at your wit's end. Get help. Ask for help. Don't be a tough guy. As we mentioned, don't try to take it all yourself. Get help for that. Ask for help. The PTSD, I appreciate that this morning. You talked about the facts on suicide. The statistics. What do you say? 1 in 11? Every 11 minutes. It's a staggering statistic. And to me, it's my one father committed suicide, so that's my statistic. But it faces everyone. So don't be a tough guy. Get help. Ask for help. I mentioned the things about my dad earlier because he was my giant, right? He was my spiritual giant. He was one I anchored to wrongly, right? I anchored much of who I was to him and not to Christ. But having said that, he was the guy I looked up to. He was my spiritual giant, right? But if it can happen to my dad, it can happen to anyone. So don't let it. Just get help. Ask for help. Don't be prideful. And then on the other side of that, be available to people. Listen to people. As you mentioned earlier, I forget who mentioned that now, but you mentioned that earlier about when you get a phone call, when somebody comes to your mind, call that person, right? And I talked about that Wednesday night in my college and career class. Be obedient to that. When God lays somebody on your heart, going to work or whatever, pray for that person. And then when you get to call them, text them, just be that open communicator with that person. Just listen. Don't be so quick we're always quick to speak, right? But let's be slow to hear, to listen. Be that ear. We all need to speak at some point. We need to communicate what we're going through, but we also need to listen to what others are going through and be open to that. I'll just kind of close with this. As I mentioned earlier, my job now is business continuity program specialist is my title. But so I went to a conference in March, and the new buzzword for business continuity is now business resilience, right? So business, they are always buzzwords, right? They always change vocabulary every year, it seems like. But resilience is being able to adapt to something that happens that impacts you, right? To be able to adapt and continue on a business, in this case, with something, an adverse situation arises, that you have the plans in place to be able to adapt, to be resilient in that case. But isn't that what we have with Christ? God is our resilience plan, right? His grace and His mercy is sufficient, right? He's our resiliency plan. When those bumps in the road come along, Christ gives us that resiliency to recover from those things. I'll leave you with this last verse. There's a verse here that guided us through. And one of my brothers, I don't remember, we were talking about group text earlier, the brothers, but this was actually a good one, this group text. But during the time of between the funeral, whatever, getting ready for it, one of my brothers, found this verse and presented this verse, and it said 2 Corinthians 4, 8-9. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. And that should be all of our thing, right? That should be our prayer and our thanksgiving, right? That even though we have these situations come around, even though we're hurting, that God can heal that hurt, and He will heal that hurt. But God, right? But God. I'm thankful for that. So.
And thank you, Brother Matt.